I'm Shadi Sharif, and this is Cyborg. Okay, I'm just gonna come out and say it. Nostalgia is a bitch. She shows you a time and place that has everything your current reality lacks. She'll take you down winding roads of love, excitement, peace, joy, fleeting moments. Moments that might not have even happened the way we remember them today. But moments we wish we could go back to and know we never can. According to the Merriam Dictionary, nostalgia is the wistful or excessively sentimental yearning for return to some past period or irrecoverable condition. But that definition doesn't capture the whole picture. Nostalgia is a place. We can live in it. We can breathe it. We can get lost in it. So why the hell does nostalgia exist? Why is it an inherent part of the human experience, and one we actually seek out? When we're looking out the window, lying in bed, or smell a perfume and get lost in the memories of what was. And there are so many different types of nostalgia, but generally psychologists agree on two main ones. First is historical nostalgia, which is a longing for a time in history that may even predate when we were born, and it's often connected to a dissatisfaction with the present and feeling that things must have been better in the past. And the second is personal nostalgia, which is longing to return to moments from our own personal experience, our memories. But something to keep in mind is that often our memories are not like watching an instant replay of events. Often, our memories get distorted, and they show us more our impressions of the past, which may not be an accurate account. And I find in the research that these two different types of nostalgia are studied separately and believed to be entirely different. But I actually think that not only can they co-occur, but also they can influence each other. And I think no other group of people does that theory apply to more than immigrants and refugees. Because not only can they be longing for a life they once had, but at the same time, they may also be longing for a historical time period where things were better than they are now. So in today's episode, I want to explore what nostalgia is, why we experience it, and the important role it plays in the lives of immigrants and refugees. But to start, let's first hear Firishte Agahi, an Iranian American, with her husband Siavash, describe her immigration experience. Welcome to Cyborg, Firishte. I first want to ask, how old were you when you came to the U.S.?
I was 16 when I got here, and I left the country. Well, I was 16 and a half when I came to U.S., and I left age 14, but we came illegally. So not illegally to U.S., but we had to flee the country, go to, at that time, Pakistan was the safest between, choosing from Turkey or Pakistan. So we went to Pakistan, and it took us a little more than 2 weeks to, go from the border of Iran to get to the city that you could go and say, hey, I'm a refugee who came from Iran. And it was just like walking, riding a couple horses and donkeys, it depends what they had, and riding on the back of a pickup truck, and then a couple buses that we had to ride in. But and it was like fall, so it was like raining and cold. It wasn't just, well, I came with my parents. Obviously I was still underage, so it was me, my parents, and my sister, but with us were 18 other people. There were families that they were, in the same boat as us, fleeing the country. So I came here when I was 16 and a half.
Wow, that's a long journey to get here, over 2.5 years. And it was at such a young age. I mean, you were 14 when you left Iran. And adolescence in general is a really difficult time period for young people. It's when young people start differentiating themselves from their families and exploring their sense of identity. But to add to that period a massive shift in your reality, becoming a refugee, and then eventually coming to the US, I can't imagine how much harder that period was for you. I'm curious what it was like when you came to America and went to school, because you left Iran when you were 14 and came to the US when you were 16. So were you in school at all when you were in Pakistan?
No, I barely finished seventh grade. So I was a middle school kid. And by the time I got here, my age was a sophomore age. And my education was a seventh grade. And getting 2.5 years of break, of nothing, you forget everything. You forget everything. Like even if you go to school for 9 months, 3 months of summer break, you're still like, oh, let me refresh my memory and see what I study. 2.5 years, I didn't remember anything. Like math, I remember nothing. And then anything else wasn't useful. If I did social study or history, totally different what they taught back in Iran. So I was a seventh grader at the age of a sophomore kid in United States.
Wow, I can't even imagine how difficult of an adjustment that was, because not only were you going to school in a new country with a new language and culture, but it was also your first time at school in 2.5 years. Can you describe your school experience a little bit?
So when I came in here, I looked into different schools that, you know how your house is set. This is your home school, you can go here. And none of them would accept me because English was my second language and they didn't have any program. So I had to go to only one school that was about 10 miles away from us, maybe more. Wow. But they would arrange you a school bus that they would, ride you back and forth. But that was the only option. Either you go to South High School or you go to, I think it was either West or East, I don't remember. And then we decided South High School is more diverse and there is more kids, teenagers like me. Yeah. So that was the only option that I had, South High School. And every class as a high school kid that I was taking, it was ESL. And we had different teachers. And once you catch up with your English language, there were certain classes that you had to take with regular American kids in order to get those credits to graduate from high school. So it was a lot of work, hard work, studying, because I had to finish 4 years of high school in 2 years. My goal was I need to graduate like everybody else. I mean, everybody's graduating when they're 17, max 18. And if I want to go with my pace, I'm going to be 20 years old. Yeah. So I was like, I need to study and take tests. And, they would look at my grades and be like, oh, yeah, you can jump 1 grade ahead now. You passed this class. So I was able to finish it by 18. I was already in college.
Wow.
But it wasn't easy. It was not easy as a teenager to go to high school here and not speak the language. Yeah, it was very difficult.
I can only imagine how much work it took to finish so quickly. And that's incredible. I'm curious, during those first few years in the US, how did you feel about living here? Were you happy?
No, I was not happy. I hated it. And that took me, I would say, 10 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
I was like, I don't like the culture. I did not like Colorado. I do not like Colorado. I still don't like Colorado. Let me rephrase that. Yeah. I think I was more looking forward to see something more like New York or California. When I came in, I'm like, this is America? This is not, that's not what I was looking for, but okay. Because when I lived in Tehran right before we came. So I was Tehran is a busy city. It's like live. You go out midnight, everybody's still out eating, hanging out. I would go out at 8 p.m. with my parents, and I'm like, they're closing in 30 minutes. Like, what? Why is it here? Is it Colorado? And they're like, well, yeah. If you go to Los Angeles, it's different. And we did go to Los Angeles, and I'm like, wow, this is so good. I like this place. Can we move here? And my parents were like, no, we already moved from country to another country. We are just tired of moving, and we already have families here. It's been a couple years. We already settled down. Let's just stay here. So that was to me, it was like, okay, first of all, I didn't move because I decided. Siavash moved because he wanted to move. He made that decision. So you're already 14. Somebody already made the decision that we are moving. Why? Because it's better for you. So you already don't have any closure there. You're still inside. You're not happy because something wasn't discussed with you, and it wasn't like, hey, what do you think? Should we move? No. Not even a simple question. So you still have, like, this is the level, you're like the half, like not the half a bottle. At the bottom is already filling up, right? Then you come to Pakistan, no education, another culture shock. And totally different. 10 families living in one house, one in each room, everybody using the same kitchen and one bathroom. If you're lucky, 2 bathrooms. You're not happy. As a girl, you want to have your own freedom, walk in your pajamas all day, but you have to be dressed up because there are 20 other people walking around, different ages, boys or girls. Your bottle is like, your cup is half full now. You're still not happy. You come to Colorado, you get the culture shock, and you don't like what you see. You don't like the weather. You don't like how everything is here. And then school, and then you're like, oh, I still don't like it. And then now you're full. You're like, you know what? I didn't even want this move, and I moved. So it took me 10 years to keep going back. We moved. Okay, was it bad that I moved here? No, I got my education. So, okay, you are like, okay, that part is good now. I understand that part. But then you're like, okay, what can I do about the state that I don't like? What can I do about the cold weather that I don't like? The long winters, can I do something about that? No, I can't do anything. Can I do something about how lively and out and loud this state or city is? No, I can't do anything about that. So it's like it never got resolved. And I'm like, it took me 10 years to be like, you know what? It is okay. It's okay that I moved. But that 10 years, I finished my education. I got a job here. I got married. You see how much I had to, go through and be like, oh, okay, I can adjust now, Yeah. But it was like hard. When we got married, I said, guess what? I don't like here. And he's like, you don't like Colorado? I said, I just don't like the whole country. I want to move back home.
Wow.
He said, okay, you left the country when you were 14. You have no clue what it is like to live there. This is a blessing. This is a great country to live in. Why don't we go visit for a couple weeks? And you tell me if you like it or not. That 3 weeks felt like 3 years. I'm like, let's go back. So that was a closure. I'm like, okay, I know I'm not moving out of the country. This is good. Yeah. And then I'm like, what if we move out of a state? He's like, okay, let's go see other states. Yeah. And then we visited other states, and I'm like, no, I still don't like these other states. So I had to do all these things to be like, okay, no, I think I'm okay. I like it here. It's not as bad that I thought it is, but it did take me 10 years to adjust and like this whole change.
Wow.
Because it wasn't something that I was like, I want to do this. It was something that I was like dragged into it. Maybe that's why it wasn't something that, because I always like to make my own decisions, wrong or right. I like to take that risk. And that decision was made for me. So it's always like, what can I do to change that? And I couldn't make that change. So I felt like I'm in this little circle turning around myself, chasing my own tail.
Wow. I think that feeling unhappy post-migration is a common experience between immigrants and refugees. And I can especially see that magnified for you because you didn't make the decision to move. It was out of your control. And at the same time, you had an idea of what home was like, a home that you were longing for. But it sounds like you were able to eventually visit home again, and that revealed to you the positives of your current life. So I'm curious, how old were you when you went back to Iran, and can you describe why that was such an important experience?
So like I said, when I came here, I was so behind on my education based on my age. So I was on this like fast forward button pushed on me that I had to be like, okay, I need to finish my college now. So 21 years old, I finished my 4-year college in 2.5 years. I was taking 18 credits fall and spring and 12 during summertime. Like I'm like, I am behind. I need to go. So 21 when I finished, 22 years old, basically the age that he came from Iran, that's when I got married. 22 years old. 8 years later, I went back home. So I was this like adult. I wasn't a teenager anymore. And I had a different kind of memories and perspective at that age when I left. It was just like families, gatherings. I didn't have to deal with anything outside. I went back home and I'm like, oh my gosh. First of all, it's not as clean as here. There is no law. You have to basically, I'm crossing the streets. I feel like I'm in this Illich Garden ride that I'm risking my life that I don't get hit by this truck or by that motorcycle. I'm like, what? Okay, that's scary. I cannot live like this and have kids here. And then you know, family members, they come and go. Family members come and go. And I'm like, wow, like, does this ever end? Like, that's how this culture is? Like, I'm used to being alone. And weekdays are for work and relaxing. Weekends, we will plan something. I call you if you want to hang out, we will hang out. It wasn't just knocking on the door, hey, we're coming over. What? I'm not even ready. And that was like, that's different. I'm like, I'm not used to that. 8 years, I lived something with a different culture. Driving. I was like, there's no way I can drive here. And since the day I came here, I was at the legal age that I could drive. So I've been driving in highways, nice, clean, with rules. There, I'm like, I just have to rely on somebody to drive me around. And walking in the streets, here, everybody has their own space. You walk, God forbid somebody hits you. They say, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Are you okay? In Iran, you're like literally wrestling and walking. They hit you, they walk, and nobody says, I'm sorry or excuse me. Shopping, nothing. I'm going to shop for a pair of shoes. And the door is closed. I knock on the door and I say, I'm trying to buy that shoe that I see. And he's like, it's lunchtime, you're closed, go come back later. And I'm like, wow, that's rude. That's not how I am. You know, as a teenager, I was raised with the culture. You go to the mall, you want to buy something, it's 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Anytime you go, customer service, how can I help you? No. Very rude. And I'm like, he's right. Why do I want to come? It's just like, I feel like I'm going to go through a lot of stress and then I have to adapt and learn this culture. And I'm like, no, why do I want to have a family here and then have my kids raised here? That helped a lot. That trip back home helped a lot for me to be like, where you are is a good place. So don't
take it for granted.
Get those things, negative things that you have in the back of your mind, whatever you have built up, that I don't like it here because I came here, somebody dragged me, out of your head. So we went back home again 3 more times, but guess what? Every time the time shrank. Next time was 2 weeks. The second time was 7 days, because I was like, as soon as we can come back home, let's come back home. Yeah. So those were the big shocks. I was like, wow, I can't believe that I lived here and I was okay with this kind of treatment and culture and everything.
What's really interesting is that the word nostalgia comes from the Greek words nostos, which means return, and algos, which means pain. The literal meaning of nostalgia is the pain of desiring to return to where you're from. So as Firish just said, it took her nearly 10 years to feel happy being in the US, and a big component of her struggle was her longing to go back home. The memories she had of her past life, the traditions, celebrations, spending time with her family, her nostalgia. But it wasn't an accurate account of the reality. So why do humans experience nostalgia? When I first started researching, I expected to find studies showing that nostalgia is bad, that it can hinder people from moving forward and keep them stuck in the past. But I was shocked to find the opposite. Nostalgia is actually an incredibly motivating and protective experience, and here's why. First, it unifies our sense of who we are over time. Think about it. All of us are different people from who we were a year ago, 5 years ago, and decades ago. And those changes are challenging, even more so in immigrants. They left behind their country, their home, their family, their friends, the foods they would eat, the way they would carry themselves. All the things that made them who they are, their identity was left behind. And a big part of the immigrant experience is developing a sense of identity in their new home. And it can feel so disconnecting to feel completely separate from the environment you're in. But through nostalgia, we're able to remember our past and see our authentic self. It reminds us of who we have been and connects us to who we are today. It unifies us over time. So in a critical way, nostalgia can be a stabilizing force in times of change, because humans really seek a sense of control, and it can be really difficult to grasp changes. It threatens us. But by experiencing nostalgia, we're able to connect to our sense of self and remember a time that we felt accepted and whole. Because leaving a culture risks losing a part of who we are and what we value. But through nostalgia, immigrants are able to connect with their self-concept and sense of meaning in life. Second, another really interesting finding is that nostalgia is a social emotion. Not only does it connect us to ourselves, but it also connects us to other people. So if you've ever been hanging out with your friends or family and reminiscing about times in the past, you know that nostalgia can be infectious and it can be a bonding experience that triggers really positive emotions in a group of people. And at the same time, nostalgia can also connect us to people in our past who we may not be able to be with today. And we're reminded of the sense of belonging we felt in those moments. And what's really interesting is that studies show experiences of nostalgia actually reduce loneliness. And because loneliness is an inherent aspect of the immigrant experience, nostalgia plays a huge role in helping people cope with their struggles. On the other hand, some recent studies suggest that higher rates of nostalgia for one's home culture is connected with negative associations with the new culture, and it may impact the level of willingness a person has to adapt to that new culture. But this is really new research, and it's still very unclear where this might go. And many, many more psychologists strongly believe that there are no negatives to nostalgia. So in the end, nostalgia might not be a bitch, but actually our internal neurosurgeon carrying our sense of loss. So in the words of Marty McFly from Back to the Future, Doc, you're my only hope. Intro music was written by Optin Akrami. And if you're interested in the research I referenced, you can find a complete list on our website at cyborg.info.